This is the monthly meeting of the City of Portland Human Rights Commission. I want to start the meeting by reading the mission for our commission. The Human Rights Commission works to eliminate discrimination and bigotry, to strengthen intergroup relationships, and to foster a greater understanding, inclusion, and justice for those who live, work, study, worship, travel, and play in the City of Portland. In doing so, the Human Rights Commission is guided by the principles embodied in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So thank you all for being here. Let's first do introductions if we could, and we actually start, if you're not aware of some of the folks who are at the table. Dante James is the new Director of the Office of Equity and Human Rights. So welcome, Dante. And Mark Phillip is from Facilitation and Process. So we'll be working with us on our strategic planning process. So we'll, maybe by way of introductions this morning, we've done it a couple times in the past, but we have it again, just a brief, your name and maybe just a little bit about yourself and how you come to the commission for the benefit of Mark and Dante and others in the room, who everybody is. I guess I'll start. My name is Alan Lazo. I'm the current chair of the Human Rights Commission. I've been on the commission for 2.5 years now, and I came mostly to this work through the Intergroup Dialogue program that is part of the Office of Equity and Human Rights. And I'm a longtime Portlander, lived in Portland, and mostly East Portland for about 40 years. This way?
I'm Kyle Betsy, Vice Chair of the Human Rights Commission. I've been on the commission since May, I guess, May or June of last year, and I got involved with the commission through my work as a civil rights attorney and community outreach through that. So, me.
Sarah Hussain, staff.
Anthony James, Director of Equity and Human Rights.
Again, Mark Fuller, Facilitation Process. My name is Ronaldo Taxay. I'm kind of a Polo for short. Married on it.
I'm old.
You're old.
Speak up.
I got it. I'm sort of new to city employment too. It's now the Office of Equity and Human Rights. Was before Office of Human Relations for about 3 years, maybe a little more. And I've been doing law practice with Asians, Islanders, Muslim, and Spanish-speaking families since 1986. And I will be the new staff for you all, the Human Rights Commission, and the Community Police Relations Committee, Council, Commission. And starts with C too, right?
Sigu?
Huh?
Sigu? The Sigu Committee?
I have a hard time with acronyms. Maybe. And until things change. Thank you, Sarah, for handing off this to me and feeding us tonight.
Hello, my name is Mayna Arreola, and I'm from Mexico, and I live in Quito, here in Portland. And I've always been really interested in civil rights and human rights, and I work mostly in rural areas around the state, in different areas. So joined the commission months ago.
Good afternoon. My name is Sonita Fry. I've been a commissioner since 2008, and before that I participated in the advisory group that, along with Polo, that worked on the framework for action document that is part of our work here. And I'm a trained facilitator along with Alan in the Intergroup Dialogue program. That's about it.
Good afternoon. Ashley Horn. I work for the National Indian Child Welfare Association. We do government affairs and advocacy and community development. I've worked with tribes for about 8 years, sovereignty, social justice for a person, and I've worked with some other populations in the past. And really what brings me to human rights work is when I was much younger in my teens, I lived in South Africa post-apartheid, and just seeing some of the constant human rights abuses and lateral oppression really drove me to this work, and I'm really happy to be here. And I've been in Portland about 4.5 years now. So I've kind of moved around the United States. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Diallo Bennett, and I'm from here in Portland. I love it. I go to school here at Portland State. I study philosophy, communication, and I got involved with human rights because I have a passion for this kind of work and hope to promote some radical change.
Good afternoon, and I can talk. I know. Last time I had laryngitis. My name's Donna Maxey. So I guess I'm telling the history of when I started in civil rights. I was in civil rights in utero, and it's a generational thing, intergenerational thing. If you've seen the movie The Great Debaters, they had Denzel played a union guy, and my grandfather was a union guy, and he got killed doing union work. So it's kind of in the blood. And I started on the commission, I guess, in 2008. Was it, Anita, we started? Okay. And I'm very happy to be doing this work. I just retired from teaching. So now I guess I'm a facilitator for Uniting to Understand Racism, which is a parallel with the city's facilitators. And I am the creative director of Race Talks, which is a monthly race dialogue that happens at McMinn's Kennedy School. So welcome. Glad to have you here.
I'm Amy Samara Krauskopf, and joined the commission in March of this year. And I'm thrilled, very happy about that. And I come to human rights work. I started, I think, when I was about 19, navigating some kind of path to work that, and found myself working internationally with post-Civil War and current Civil War environments and survivors, working fair trade and emergency relief, as well as some very direct human rights accompaniment. I also call it unarmed bodyguard work, which is a very moving and profound experience. So since deciding to make Portland my home base, I've been struggling to figure out how to do that kind of initiatives locally at home and state. So that's what brought me here. So I'm looking forward to bringing some of those experiences and skills and insights to what we're up to.
Hector Lopez. I've been in the commission since 2008. I have about 60 years of experience in this type of work, which can be as much a hindrance as a help. And I'm in Portland because I followed my wife, who was pastor of Ainsworth United Church of Christ. I'm retired, and I've been able to travel all over the world on behalf of justice issues because of my profession. And it's taken me into some incredible places, and I bring that experience to this table.
Well, thank you all. Again,
Maybe David can introduce himself.
give me 1 second to settle in. And we just did quick introductions around, just told a little bit about ourselves for the benefit of folks who are new.
Hi, I'm David. And
How did you get into this work, and how long have you been on the commission?
I've been on the commission, I think, about 1.5 years now, and I live this work.
Thanks, sir. All right, so you have in front of you today's agenda. So we'll do some updates of our committee and liaison work. and then we'll mark on where we're headed with strategic planning. So the community update, somewhere in there, I think you have in front of you the spreadsheet for the budget, so we'll work that in there. Actually, we might have to add it as a whole separate one. So if we could we add number 5 to the budget on that underneath committee and liaison updates. So if there are any other substantive changes to the agenda?
Not substantive, but I would like to just give a heads up about what the 3 newcomers are thinking about getting ourselves oriented.
Oh, okay. Well, can we do that under number 4?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so we'll have to watch our timing in that first one, because we want to leave a good amount of time for Mark in the end. So we'll ask Kyle to be brief in his updates. So any other substantive changes in the agenda today? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda here with the changes that we have discussed.
Alan?
Yes.
Excuse me, are we going to be discussing dates?
Dates for strategic planning?
Yes. Is that a fait accompli?
No, I'm going to assume that we can discuss that underneath the agenda with Mark, if that's okay.
Thank you.
I think that's absorbed down this time. Any other comments, questions?
Are we going to talk about this?
Yes, we'll talk about that in our communications and outreach, which this being the festivals and fairs spreadsheet. So we'll talk briefly about that, upcoming events that we might want to get involved in on that long range. Others? Is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented? So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor by a show of hands on the aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. You also have in that same packet the meeting minutes from March 7th it was. Could take a moment to peruse those, see if you have any substantive changes.
I have a very minor change. I don't have the minutes in front of me, but that's okay. I remember. There was a sentence about Amy joining the CGU.
Oh.
I guess, is that acronym right? I intended to say I want to support the Occupy initiative you're working on, but not fully commit at this time to joining the committee as a whole, if I may.
Okay.
I can do that. That one.
It's on page 4, the last sentence of item number 3. Gosh, Amy.
Yeah, I can do that.
For joining. Okay. Any other substantive changes to the meeting minutes of March 7th? There are no other changes. Okay, we played. So same thing, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes as revised for March 7th. So, second?
Second.
All right. All in favor by show of hands and aye?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? All right. We are close to being on time. We have 5 minutes behind. If you want to check in with the folks in the audience, first of all, you can actually, if you'd like, to introduce yourselves, or if anybody has public comment, we'll take it at this time. So we'll start down there with Mike, I guess.
Hi, I'm Mike Tabor, and I'm filming just as a volunteer here on my own time, not for the commission, just so you know. And I put all my stuff up under joeanybody.com on the internet. So just trying to help by cover your meetings.
Thanks, Mike.
Document.
Hi, I'm Afifa Ahmed-Shafi. I'm actually here as a student, just observing, but I know a few of you as my role in the Office of Neighborhood Involvement. I staff the Public Involvement Advisory Council.
I'm Woody Pollock, citizen at large. I'm also a student. All 3 of us are students, so we're here as observers today.
this is also the time if anybody has public comments. I don't know if anybody signed up or if anyone from our audience, even though you've come to observe, you're welcome to provide comments. We might have an opportunity later if anything comes to you. Welcome. And also, I think want to give Dante a couple minutes at this point, wanting just to expand on your introduction and bring forward any pieces that you might feel the need at this point now that you're here.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon again. I appreciate the chance just to offer some thoughts and be here at the meeting. I attended the executive committee meeting last week or 2 weeks ago. I'm still kind of punched up as I finished my 11-hour drive from Denver with a U-Haul. I unloaded it yesterday and got in the shower to go to a meeting with one of the commissioners. So it's been a busy last few days. You know, I've been doing political, social justice work, legal work for a long, long time, of one sort or another. For me, this office is kind of a culmination of all of those things, with a phenomenal opportunity to create something better in the city of Portland. And I'm not saying it's bad to start with, I'm just saying to create something better. You know, the uniqueness of the city structure gives it its own difficulties, but that is our focus. Different than the Office of Human Relations was. Our focus will be much more internal in terms of basically focusing on addressing systemic issues that create disadvantage for people in the city of Portland, communities of color specifically, disability communities specifically. And I know that this commission has been very active and very involved in being a part of creating a better place in Portland. So I certainly thank you for your work. I've sat on commissions, I've chaired them, I know the work and the volunteer effort it takes to do it. So I thank you for your time and your commitment. I also know the drama that was involved in the concerns, drama's probably not the right word, the concerns that were expressed by the commission in relation to the creation of the new office. So I'm not unmindful of that. And as far as my interaction, my office's interaction with the commission, I can assure you, I have no desire to interfere with how you do what you do, nor what you do specifically. For me, this office is the watchdog for the city of Portland. And if that means being a watchdog over how I do what I do, write a press release and complain about it. And you'll hear no issues from me. So I have no interest in interfering with how you do what you do. Because I think it's an important piece of what happens on behalf of folks in this city who can't speak for themselves as well as we can speak for them. And so it's my goal to have a positive working relationship with this commission. And we might disagree on process, but we'll never disagree. Well, we can disagree, but I'll never inhibit product from this commission. And I hope that this commission can really be a voice for the communities. And I mean, I would love to see a press release every day with the Human Rights Commission's name on it. I would love to see a newspaper article. I would love to see a reporter in somebody's face with a microphone so the commission is speaking on human rights issues in this city. That's the power I'd love to see this office really take. knock on my door because it's always open. You don't even need a knock. Just come on.
Thank you, Dante. Be sure that folks are kind of tying the threads together for our relationship with Dante and the Office of Human Rights. You know, for folks who haven't sat with us over the last year, that may not be entirely clear. But the staffing relationship is that our expectation has been that not only is Polo, who's helping us now, currently a member of the Office of Equity and Human Rights, but the person that will staff us eventually, whether or not that's Polo or Sarah or whoever it is, will be located in the Office of Equity and Human Rights. And our expectation also is that Dante will, as much as he has indicated he wants to be hands-off and let us do our work, we're going to rely on him also as a leader in this community in equity and human rights issues, because that's where we've landed and where our work has landed. And to some degree, our hope will be that our work will align with the kind of work that is going to be happening in that office. The folks that we worked with in the past are in that office, and some of the projects that we've brought forth now live in that office. So that's our relationship with the Office of Equity and Human Rights and with Dante and his staff. So I know that sometimes for folks walking in, all the things that have happened over the last year may not be entirely clear to you, but hopefully they become more in focus as we move forward and these relationships are developed and our work continues on. So really appreciate Dante being here and participating with us and providing his insights and leadership and all the folks from the office. Are there any questions or comments for Dante?
Welcome.
Thank you. I couldn't agree with you more, Dr. I would love to see us up and running to the point that we are agile enough to be responsive to everyday issues in this community that come up in the news. We can't do that now. We don't do that now. I know that every one of us sit at home, watch the news, read the paper, and see things that we should be responding to. We just have not had the ability to do that over the last year. The timing right now is pretty good because we just had something happen this week that I really felt like we should respond to. I don't know if we have time to talk about it tonight, but the continuation of issues surrounding the shooting of Aaron Campbell are issues that we responded to a year and a half ago. And we just haven't had the opportunities to do those kinds of things. And to respond to those kinds of tragedies that are civil rights and human rights issues in this community. So I, like Dante, hope that we get to that place. That we can do that kind of work and be in that kind of place. Part of that will come with the work that we do moving forward, strategic planning, and with the folks around the state. Thank you again. Before I move into the other committee updates, Malloy, welcome. Just want to give you a chance to introduce yourself. You've met Dante before, but to give a brief overview of yourself, if you'd like. Say a word.
Thank you. So I'm Malloy Baird, and I guess I'll use this as an opportunity to provide an update. I sent an email around earlier last month about some changes going on in my office. So I pleased, I guess, to say that I decided to stay with the Fair Housing Council of Oregon in the role of litigation director. So I will be supervising our enforcement activities and also continuing to help with the grant writing and acquisition. So, and we just learned before I came over here that we were awarded a VISTA volunteer. So I'm excited about that.
Well, good to have you, Neville. All right, let's move into committee and liaison updates. So I would like to try to get us to be able to turn this thing over to Mark as close to 5 as we can. So if you are on this list of committee updates, we'll ask you to embrace brevity. How's that?
You looking at me, as you said?
All right, Kyle, you're first.
It'll be brief. The Human Trafficking Forum is scheduled as it was before, for April 25th, 5:30 to 8:30 at the Portland Building, second floor auditorium. Nothing's changed about that, but we have secured 4 wonderful speakers who will be providing insight to the community and the commission about the human trafficking issues in Portland. And as we've said before, we're focusing this forum on foreign-born trafficking, at-risk immigrant populations who've been trafficked over international borders. And so we're going to have Keith Bickford, who's Executive Director of Oregonians Against Human Trafficking, and Oregonians Against Trafficking in Humans. There are 2 different things, believe me. And Diane Sykes, who's the Civil Rights Director at the Oregon Attorney General's Office, Anna Shashelsky, who is an immigration attorney, and Chris Kilmer, who is the Director of the Immigrant Program at Catholic Charities. And so they'll be providing us with insight. There are a couple of other people that may be participating, but we have those 4 secured for the night. And Damon and I got an opportunity to sit down with them yesterday and talk about all that they'll be discussing. And it's going to be a great event. We're really excited about it. And it is a Human Rights Commission event. It's not just Human Trafficking Task Force. So the goal is to have as many human rights commissioners present as possible, because the Human Trafficking Task Force is going to be presenting the Human Rights Commission with a report on our findings, and we'll be hoping to get insight from all of you and to learn from all of your experiences, so that we can then form a strategy moving forward about how we can best serve our community in that area. So I really encourage everybody to be there on the 25th. It will be very public, so it'll be a good showing, an opportunity for the Commission to show that we're interested in this issue, to ask questions of the speakers. We'll have an opportunity to do that, and there will be a lot of people there from civil rights, human rights, community organizations who will have an opportunity to interface with them. So it's a great opportunity for us to do a lot of things that we want to do, including getting ourselves out into the community, showing people that we are active in human rights issues in this community, and to address the very serious problem in this community. So it's really important that we all try to be there. And if anybody has any suggestions for anybody that I know that last time I was soliciting names or organizations who we could be reaching out to, that offer is, or that plea is still out there. Also, if you are able to be there and would like to participate in the hearing itself by helping out, there's going to be food and drinks, and we're going to be having people writing on cards, writing questions on cards, and we'll be collecting them and bringing them up to the front and asking questions of the presenters. So we will be needing some hands on deck. If anybody's available to do that, it would be great to get your participation in actually facilitating the event. So that's where we are.
One more time, please, where and when?
It's April 25th from 5:30 to 8:30 at the Portland Building, 2nd floor auditorium. If anybody has any questions about the event or the speakers, ask me now, or for the sake of time, you can ask me afterward.
I get a question because so our role that evening will be, so it sounds like you potentially need some assistance in facilitating and running the event, or will we be sitting as a panel and listening to the speakers and questions and such?
The commission, anybody from the commission who is there will be asked to be on the panel to ask the questions.
Okay.
Because that's what we're there for.
Right. Okay. But as far as the facilitation of the event, then it's...
Well, I'm going to be there. Damon will be there. Sarah will be there helping out. And Sarah's been just tremendous. Thank you very much, Sarah, for all your help with this. It wouldn't be getting done without her. Stephen will be there. Hi, Stephen. And Myra will be there. Thank you. So we'll probably have enough help, but the offer is out there. If you do want to participate, please speak up. We'll find something. But definitely be there because we want questions from human rights commissioners. We want, I'm going to just be emceeing, and I'm going to introduce any of the commissioners that are there, talk a little bit, very briefly about the commission and what we're doing. So I'd like to have as many commissioners there as possible to actually introduce you and let people know that we're out there.
Because I sort of envision it as a, I don't know if we put the format together this way, as a presentation to the HRC.
Yes.
Which is kind of what the previous public hearing was like. So we're really sitting and absorbing this information to begin moving our work forward. So that's probably our role there, and it looks much better if we're all there and receiving that information that is being presented to us. So.
Right. And
I think that's our
right, and we're going to set it up so it's the presentation is to the HRC and the community who are going to be there, but the HRC is actually going to be featured, and we'll have the opportunity to ask questions of the speakers and really get involved.
So it'd be good to show up so we don't have to get seat fillers.
Right.
Is it going to be captured on film? We have our annual conference. I can't say that I'll be out of state, of course.
We haven't decided whether we're going to have it videotaped yet, but...
Hey, Mike, what are you doing?
Well, I'd like to go to it and tape it. But
All right.
Well, you're free to do that.
Okay.
It's a public hearing.
Okay.
So...
So were you going to pay somebody to tape it, or throw some ducats Mike's way, or something? Just a question.
Well, I can't answer that question yet, but if we haven't decided whether we're actually going to videotape it. It's going to be recorded, but we haven't decided whether we're going to videotape it yet. But if Mike's there,
I'll be there.
So yes, we are.
Any other questions for Kyle on the event or the process or the format or your participation? Yes.
I'd just like to make a note too that in our effort to actually step into the 2000s, Mayor will actually be creating a Facebook page for the Human Rights Commission. So this is a giant step forward for us. I'd like to acknowledge that.
Good. Solid work. Thank you. And the event will be on there posted?
Yes. Well, she's making an event page.
Okay.
Facebook page.
Oh, an event page.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
friend the HRC.
I just have two more questions. Are there any policy briefs or anything that the HRC is putting together prior? I know I had volunteered to be helpful with that. I can't physically be there or meet with you because it's during my regular business hours, but I could help with that. And then just in terms of invites, what sort of what we're doing to disseminate. I've seen some back and forth emails, but if there's anything that I should be, I don't want to do duplicative efforts if you're already sending it out to certain groups.
I have a list of the people who have received invites, and I can talk to you about that afterward. And Stephen is handling the pre-hearing briefs. Every commissioner is going to be getting one, and so you'll have an opportunity to review that. But Stephen can speak to that.
So we can talk about creating, collaborating, and share an effective brief on all the issues.
Thank you. That would be great. Well, good. Again, thanks to the HTTF for the work on getting the hearing together. And again, it's just the beginning of that work. So thanks for that effort.
Thank you.
The CPRC, as we like to refer to it.
Community and Police Relations Committee, which is your committee, does your work in a focused way. I think the history of our committee is quite clear in that when the Human Rights Commission was created, it was the understanding one of the components they would be doing would be dealing with the racial profiling issue in the police department. And so that was a given. That was thrown on the table before we had it even met. And so we have tried to respond to that as well as we can. We've responded to two of the agenda items that was in the racial profiling plan by Chief Rosie Sizer. So that gave us the ability to initiate that process. Since then, and by the way, you can go to the website, right, sir? and catch the work that the CPRC has done. So I don't have to report that out to you throughout these last several years. But we've discovered that we can't just pull out racial profiling out of the reality and context of the police department. That underlying the reasons for racial profiling, for recruitment, for a number of other issues is institutional racism. And so you've heard us report on that. We have a working group that's focusing on responding to the institutional racism of the Police Bureau. Please note, though, that this will be our initial start. We are also going to direct that energy at all the other bureaus of the city of Portland and other institutions such as education. So this is where we're starting. And we have a police officer who's on our committee who is just really passionate about this issue. That's Officer Deanna
Weston Mitchell.
Right, Weston Mitchell, who's agreed to, with Maria Lisa Johnson, to coordinate this working group. And so we're starting to see that we're looking at a 5-year plan of involving the Police Bureau in a training process through all sorts of venues with the idea of helping the Bureau eliminate institutional racism, which creates a lot of the issues that we're confronted with out in the community. That has been initiated. We've been working for almost a year on it now. We're at the stage where we're doing our own strategic planning. We have a meeting coming up in which we have 3 points: clarify our resources, propose next steps for the working group, and then how we feed this information to the Community Relations Police Relations Committee and Human Rights Commission. So that's what we're doing. We have a visit scheduled coming up. Emma, do we have a visit coming up? Yeah, I don't either. I think it'll be in the first part of May to visit the Seattle plan. Seattle has come together with one of the most amazing bureau citywide plans on racial justice anywhere in the country. Every single bureau or equivalent in the city of Seattle has committed to undertake this process, which is a lengthy process, except for one of their bureaus. Guess which one? The Police Bureau. We're starting, I was going to say, is there a term rear backwards? Or
Retroactively?
actually, it's not a clean language. We're starting with the Bureau, with the Police Bureau. Their management, starting with the Chief Reese and Chief O'Day and others, have agreed in principle to a 5-year commitment for this plan to take effect in the Bureau. To allow us to do that work professionally, we have begged and prayed for religious people and done everything within our power to get resources from a person who is working for the Bureau right now, and Emma Covelli has been graciously agreed to provide some of those resources for us, particularly policy and research and analysis, some of the real critical stuff. So that partnership is just going to really enhance our ability to act. I'm really, really happy we have that because we're volunteers. You know, everyone around this table probably has the ability to do the analysis, all of that stuff, but we don't get paid to do that. And so to do that is just some massive stuff, and so we have people like Emma who thankfully have been provided for our resources. And that's where we will go. In terms of issues, we're very interested right now as a committee on the firing of Officer Lino Pavano, one of the few Latino officers in the Police Bureau. And we have started to do some activity around that. Noble, is everyone familiar with Noble? It's the African American officers organization for the city and for the Bureau in Portland. They're being very helpful in assisting us through this process. In fact, there was a meeting last night to initiate some response to this, because the information that is starting to flow to us is very, very troublesome. And we can't allow this to go without the community really taking a look at this. And the other one, of course, is the retention of Officer, what is his name? Freshour, and the Aaron Campbell routine. We have been asked by the Bureau to take an active role in mediating with community what that means. So we'll have that on our agenda too. That's enough for now.
Thank you. Exciting stuff. Are you guys going to Seattle then? Is that what
Yes,
you're
we
doing?
are going to Seattle.
Didn't know that there was a CPRC junket. All right, we'll check into that one. Was not invited.
To clarify a question on that last piece, mediating with the community, could you just say a little bit more what that means, mediating with the community?
It's providing information on the police's attempt to eliminate this person from the Bureau. And their goodwill needs to be heard by the community. Because it really is the what do you call that person who sits there and does the Solomon thing?
Arbitrator.
The arbitrator has created this situation, and so we're asked as a goodwill effort to say this is what the police intended to do in response to this issue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Hector. Seaview, Emily is apparently away. Is there any activity from Seaview?
So I'll say it.
Thomas.
Anyway, next week, next Tuesday, the 10th, we are sponsoring an Occupy panel. The title of the presentation is Occupy Oregon Coalition, the Coalition of Color. And I had hoped to get, there are about 3 or 4 different sub-coalitions, and I had hoped to get people from the various coalitions. Some of them are integrated, some are, I think there's a Hispanic one and a Native American one, but I wasn't able to get anybody from those coalitions. So 2 people who are participating in kind of all of those coalitions are Cameron Whitten, who is running for mayor, and Ajamu Yumi. So they're going to speak. There's a film that we're going to be showing about the coalitions of color. And I think that particular film is a nationally made film. It's just a short 3-minute goodie that talks about the coalitions of color. And they're going to speak. We're going to try and keep it as, the introduction is as brief as possible. In the past, we've gone on a little long, so we're trying to cut it back and put stuff on the tables. And Alan, you and I need to talk after the meeting. Thank you very much. And it is, since you guys, how many of you have been to the any of the race talks? So I've had 3 or 4. Okay. Okay. So would like to see as many people as possible, particularly since I'm going to be saying something about HRC and our involvement. And so it's from 7 to 9 at Kennedy School. For Dante, since you're new, I'll tell you that's on 33rd and Ames. 33rd? 30? Yeah, 33rd and Killingsworth. It's actually a block north of Killingsworth. So if you're going out Killingsworth, then you would make a left and go down and you'll see an old school there, an elementary school. And you make a right, park in the back. So, yeah, I'm expecting to be really good. One of the things that makes Race Talks different than other presentations is that we will have a facilitated conversation afterwards. And the facilitation really helps to get people to discuss. We usually have between 150 and 175 people who show up for the discussion. So hope to see you all there. And I will probably introduce the commission and ask you to stand.
be there.
Don't do that?
I won't be there. Forget it.
Ah. Because you're shy of the
Yeah.
camera? Yeah, okay. All right. Yes, sir.
Max, one more time the date and time.
April 10th, 7 to 9. And we're going to see if we can be on Pacific Standard Time and not CP time or any of those other ethnic times and end on time. So normally I've been influencing the timeline quite well, and we do not end on time, but we're going to try to see if we can do that this time.
Thanks, Donna. I have another suggestion for future race soccer. How far planned out are you right now?
Kind of sort of in between, some far out, some not, so you and I can talk afterwards.
Hector said that he had something else to bring up.
Right, and I didn't want to forget this. At our last meeting, at which we first met Dr. James, glad he was there with us, it was a reflection and dialogue session. We saw Race, the Power of an Illusion, episode 3, The House We Live In, which is a PBS special that is out, which everyone should see. And then we had guided discussion led by Anita in terms of where we are in that reality. Progressive people are very dangerous people because we make the assumption that we've gotten to a place where we're free of a lot of this stuff, and then we find ourselves incredibly surprised when we realize that we're part of the problem. And so this kind of dialogue and presentation allows us the freedom to be open and honest about those moments where we're still caught in our own traps on racism, particularly institutional racism, which traps just about everyone. And so these dialogues help our committee really context what we're trying to do with the police bureau, and makes us realize that it's not they against us, it's really us trying to resolve this issue together. And I would urge us somewhere down the road maybe to do some similar reflection around this table too. Thank you, Alan.
Important stuff. All right, and the other committee update and also involves Emily with communications and outreach. So I think under this one we want to talk about 2 topics, and one will be the new members orientation, the other will be the list of festivals and fairs that has started to come together. And again, the intention with this is for us to try to capture events in the community that we would like to have a presence in eventually. And again, because we only meet monthly, we need to plan those out fairly far in advance. And at some point, we'd like to develop overall as a calendar, kind of annually, that we know where we want to show up at events, have a presence, or provide some support. So you've got that in front of you, and are there ones? So today's April 4th. Are there things coming up that we need to be aware of that folks have an interest in?
Looks like the Oregonians Against Discrimination luncheon, April 26th, seems appropriate. Is that really April 26th?
What page are you on, Kyle?
I'm on page 2. Third from the bottom, or fourth from the bottom.
Okay. Cool. Convention Center. Anybody have wow.
It's the day after the human trafficking forum.
Anybody have experience with that event, or it's brought forward by Race Rights Oregon? Wow.
Are we going to decide right now which ones we're going to use? And select, or?
I don't know. I think we just ought to be made aware of them for the moment and see if there's any action items that need to happen quickly on them, I guess what I would say.
Alan, could I add something for clarification?
Yeah.
At the top of the list, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. Asian Reporter Foundation. That's Asian Pacific American Heritage Month celebration. It is put on by the Asian Reporter Foundation, but it seems to me that would be an important place for this commission to participate.
And that's the 27th. the next day.
Also, that event honors the most honored elders in the Asian community. about $250,000 of scholarships go out to promising young people. And then those folks who've been exemplary heavy lifters in their communities are also on.
Actually, Alan, I'd like to add to that, that's a really big one in the community. We went last year and the year before that, and I think that's something we might consider. I don't know if it's possible at this late date, but
Asian
take
report one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it's a lot of community members attend, a lot of community leadership and federal leadership attend.
I will, sorry, go ahead. I also send some events that I don't see listed here, but they are, some of them are involved in, well, I brought this brochure for economic development for minority and emerging small businesses, and then the Center for Cultural Organizing, they have an event in June. So, and then in September is the Hispanic Heritage Month, and there's a lot of, luncheons and events that would be great for us to be there. So, how can we make sure that everybody provides input for this, and then make a selection or create a process to select?
Yeah.
I mean, I can volunteer to do that as long as everybody's engaged, and I don't know, maybe doodle calendar and everybody votes where, and then based on voting, we'll come up with the highest or something like that, or?
Well, I think this is a start, and so we do need to get an understanding about what is our process for allocating our resources to these events. Which ones are important to us, which ones are important to the community, and what are we available to do. That we might need to make that part of our strategic planning process. I think what I wanted to do tonight was to see if there was something very short term that we needed to pay attention to, especially this month and next month. And I agree. It sounds like the event on the 27th is a good one, but the timeline might be too short for us again. I don't know that unless we have folks who are willing to champion that, getting us to that event, we have to decide pretty quickly on our participation.
Will it be about acquiring a certain number of tickets, or will it be about buying a table?
Right. And I don't think we have the specifics on. You mean buying a table, sponsoring a table that we could attend, as opposed to tabling with information.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a tabling information. It's definitely our main table and purchasing table.
Can I make a suggestion? So I'm hearing from Myra, from you, that we're looking at short term. How can we address what's in front of us?
Yeah.
And I'm hearing from Myra more long term project. And within that, I would like to, within the long term project, I'd like to add our being clear about what is the end purpose of us attending these for the commission as well as the. So, and I love the idea of that being moved to our strategic planning, that long term. So I'm wondering if in the short term we can create a plan for outside of this meeting for the shorter term pieces. I don't know, I don't want to volunteer you, but I
can tell you that something for April, May, and then make those decisions, but then make sure when we have the strategic plan, we'll make this part of, and then we'll have for, 2012, 13, we'll have that calendar ready, and in the budget and everything done, so we don't have to decide that later.
Mayor, could you pass that brochure down the chute?
Sure, I brought some, I didn't bring enough, I didn't get enough, but I can make sure to send it electronically.
And also just want to add too, we do now have there was very few of us at the last meeting, and we talked about creating a Google Doc list, and so there is one that's created. So if you're not on it yet, I sent an invite out to everyone. If you're not on it, let me know. I will send you the invite. So in the future, we can actually add stuff to this kind of thing.
Do we know anything more about the Basic Rights Oregon event? Doesn't sound like we do.
Sarah, did you know anything about that event?
Mm-hmm. I actually didn't put this together. Oni put it together.
Oh, it's only.
Yeah.
Well, Allen Basic Rights is an awesome organization in town.
Oh, sure.
And they're more and more partnering with allies in really significant way, so that would be very critical.
Yeah, I think what we don't know is what the opportunity is.
Can I make a suggestion? If Myra is willing to look into some of the more short-term opportunities for us, maybe you could work with the executive committee, because we're going to be meeting prior to both of these two events that are coming up. It sounds like there's something that's really worth seeing or worth being a part of on the 26th and the 27th, which just happen to be the 2 days immediately following the human trafficking event. So it could be a busy week. But if people are interested in participating in some way in those events, maybe Myra can spearhead finding out exactly what we need. And at the executive committee meeting, if everybody is okay with it, the executive committee can make a decision about whether or not we're going to participate and to what extent we can
When is the next committee meeting?
It'll be Monday, the 16th.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Yep.
Here.
Yep.
Yeah, we want to do it.
Would that?
No, I think that's a
would
great
that
suggestion.
work? And if anybody is interested in participating in the event on the 26th or the 27th or both, in addition, of course, to the human trafficking forum that will be attending on the 25th, maybe we could talk about that with Myra after the meeting today. And then we can just get organized to make sure somebody's there so that we have a presence. And then maybe in the future we can plan a little bit more.
Right, yeah, and I think that's where we're heading with this.
Yeah.
So I think that's great.
Myra, if you are interested in participating in the April 27th event, either in the event itself or getting a table for your group, we probably need to talk before the 16th.
Right. Okay, that's kind of what I was
There's a program for HRC.
So maybe that would be a good connection for making.
I would love
Myra.
to get this done next week.
Yeah. Okay.
Before the 16th.
So we can figure out what we need to do for that event and the basic rights ordering event, maybe as early as by the end of the year.
Yeah. Just point of clarification on the process and involvement of all those who wouldn't be able to go to the executive committee meeting. So we're going to pull together our dates that are upcoming in the short term are going to be pulled together, and we're all going to weigh in an executive committee make final decisions about commitment or more
Yes, so
clarification.
I'm going to based on these lists, and if you have any other events that you can think of, just send them to me
Okay.
by Friday. So I'm going to put together a doodle link that I'm going to send to all of you, and then you're going to vote, okay, these yes, no, and I don't think there's going to be more than 10, 15. I mean, that seems like a lot for the next 2 months. And then based on that, we'll read some of these are the top 3, top 5, top 2, what can be done, and then we'll communicate back that to us. And then we can use this as a test, and then when we're doing the strategic planning, we can see if that can be something in the future. Or,
All right, I want to move forward. So
I just want to add that April 27th event, if we do end up getting a table, there's really good food there.
thank you, sir. That helps. All right, I want to. Amy, do you want to talk about the new member orientation piece?
Sure.
What you're thinking?
Yeah, so last month the 3 newcomers heard that we could choose a mentor out of any of the commissions that we would like. And we actually the 3 of us met for lunch and realized that we all would like to meet with each of you.
Okay.
And thought to do that together to make it more expedient. And so we'd like to put out a doodle to schedule some lunch visits if we can, or then move into happy hour visits. Just organize perhaps 2 elder or current commissioners and the new commissioners, all 3 of us to meet. So 4 or 5 gatherings over the next 10 weeks is our goal to meet everybody.
A good term, depends on how she uses it.
That's right. Sounds good. All right, so we'll look for that.
Yeah,
and,
I'll be sending that
look
out.
for participation from the current HRC members as we move further.
We're all correct.
We're all here. The more
Experience.
Currenter HRC members? And then real briefly again, what you have in front of you for the budget, thanks to Sarah, is an updated spreadsheet that it begins tracking what we've actually spent for the year by these categories versus what we had budgeted, and gives us a sense for what we have remaining. So, Sarah, do you have any thoughts on this?
It's pretty current. Even today's food is included in there.
So I guess the one takeaway is that there is quite a bit of remaining budget left in the year, with not as much time left in the year. So we'll take a look at the impact of that. But especially for committee folks, that's we budgeted some events and other things that we haven't had the opportunity to do yet. So we will take a look at events and other things so that we can start working on the goals.
Alan, would it be possible to maybe do some shifting around within a particular budget area?
I would say yes. This budget really is a guide that we created internally for ourselves to say, here's how we would like to allocate the resources that are available to us. So, I think that we can definitely do that. I think if there are major shifts in philosophy, we might come back to the commission and ask if that's okay, but yes, it's certainly possible.
Can we go back for a second? Can we do April, May, and June?
Yes.
So if you know of anything April, May, or June that you would like to see in the voting list, just send them to me by Friday, if possible.
Where is Emily to bring up the Pride Parade? Is that June?
Mm-hmm.
That was next,
Is it on there?
Yeah.
June 16th.
So bring my glasses. All right, so I want to conclude most of the regular business that we have today. And Mark, I apologize, we're a little bit behind, but you'll learn that that's the nature of us. And Dante, looks like you have something before you
Just
say
one
that.
quick thing. I'm not going to say while you go through the strategic planning process. I just wanted to thank you again for all the work that you do, and I want to thank Sarah for all the work that she's done, time, effort, energy, staff of the commission as we transition into Polo, kind of taking over that function. She'll stay through the strategic planning process because she's been involved in all of that, like Mark, et cetera. So just maintain that continuity. But I wish you much success, and I will be part of that success as we move forward together. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dante. Thank you. Looks like we might have a question.
Oh, I was just wondering if you were going to take public comment before you move on to the strategic planning phase.
Sure. Okay. Then we won't take it at the end. How about that? Sure. All right. It's Jennifer, right? Okay.
So I really appreciate having the opportunity to address you, and I was really moved by what Dante shared about the disadvantaged voices that the commission has been charged to hear. And it's why I feel moved to speak to you today, because as I was listening to Kyle talking about the Human Trafficking Forum, I was really excited. I've been working in the anti-human trafficking field for 8 years, and Keith Bickford is a phenomenal speaker and is a great resource for this. But the piece that concerns me is I sat on the Portland Human Trafficking Task Force last year when I was training with Share Hope International. And the focus was on shifting Portland's attention to domestic minor sex trafficking, because as the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reports, 100,000 to 300,000 children a year are trafficked through domestic minor sex trafficking. That is 10 times more than those that are trafficked from foreign national trafficking. The TVPA passed in 2000 allowed resources and services for those foreign-born trafficked, which provide housing, legal assistance, trauma care, things like that. The children, however, the U.S.-born citizens that are targeted and trafficked, especially in the Portland area, those that are in foster care and in lower-income communities, which I believe this commission represents,
those children have less resources available to them because they don't qualify for the T visas and the resources that foreign-born have. And so I just wanted to provide this information and issue an invitation to the Commission that while I applaud your efforts to addressing the trafficking, I really would like you to consider addressing both foreign-born and domestic minor sex trafficking, as slavery is an abomination and a scourge on the entire planet. But the children of Portland are being deeply affected, and they have no voice.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so with that, we will, is there any other public comment? No? We will turn it over to Mark Fulop.
If we take just 2 minutes, people can empty this tray of food.
Sure.
It was supposedly 3+ months, and they're saying, Mark, can you do it in 6 weeks? I think that was the first email I got from Sarah, but the goal is obviously that there's some real priority with this. Really wants to get done this year, probably for budgeting implications, but more than budgeting implications, this is, I think, a really critical time in Portland. I mean, we have lots of issues going on, not the least of which is an election coming up, with the fact that there's change. At least 2 we know are going to change. We don't know what's going to happen with the other. So we'll see how it goes. But the reality is it's an important time. It's an important time for our voice to be heard, your voice to be heard. And I'm really excited to be here, be given the opportunity to just sort of stand as sort of the outside person who kind of herds the voices. You know, my job is primarily about synthesis. It's not about driving an agenda. I'm sort of that neutral third part. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Mark Fulop. Been here since 2001. Came up right after 9/11, October, and came to Portland, Oregon by choice with wife and 2 children, wanting to raise them in a community like Portland. And we've come to anchor roots here, and looking forward to being here for a long time. Background is in public health. So I worked in county health departments in Orange County, San Diego County, and Multnomah County for 3.5 years. And there I was in the environmental health program. I supervised their education and outreach efforts. And in that capacity, I actually was on staff on the steering committee of what was the Quality Rental Housing Work Group. So I know Malloy was on that, and who else was that? Was there a second person? I think there were 2 people on the commission I saw that around that. So anyway, so that was a year-long process to try to create a report to improve quality rental in Portland, Oregon. And I bring that up to simply say that it wasn't supposed to be a year-long process. It was supposed to be a much shorter process, but just seemed to just kind of get log-jammed because of the complexity. So as we went through that process with external facilitators, it was an interesting one to help me realize that, really, things don't have to be as complicated as we try to make them. So I was asked to come in here tonight to sort of introduce what is the path forward, and really get your help in terms of creating that path forward. So here's the hard deadline is the end of June, because it's the end of the fiscal year. The self-imposed hard deadline of the city and a couple of the co-chairs is, can we have the report on the final strategic plan at our meeting on the first week of June? And so we're gonna hopefully shoot for that. And I think we're gonna structure a process that will get us there with not much room to spare, but we will get there. So absent from the table tonight is Miriam Walicki, who is a co-facilitator who's going to be working with me on this project. And she just was unable to be here. And by the way, the contract was signed on Friday. So, so between Friday and here, we're here. But you will see two other people come along. When we end up with the day-long retreat, we're going to have a second co-facilitator who's going to actually be a graphic recorder to sort of visually try to help us see the process visually during that day-long retreat. And I then have a copy editor to help us when we write it, so we'll have a clean copy so you'll have something that you can be proud of. As a team, we've jumped right into this. We have already been doing research from other commissions in other cities. We have a stack of strategic plans from a number of communities about the size of Portland, smaller than Portland and larger than Portland. And we're in the process right now of reading, synthesizing, and that material will be brought to this committee. What are the common themes of such commissions across the country? What are there strategies that seem to be the crossing threads? Are there approaches? Are there measurements that are being used? All of that will hopefully be part of the assessing to bring things to us. So, maybe I'm getting a teeny bit ahead of myself. Anything else you need to know about me? I have a small consulting practice. It's me plus a bunch of people that I kind of collaborate with on project-to-project basis. Done a lot of work with nonprofits, with government, some work with philanthropy. That's sort of the three areas where I try to do most of my work. So, and I've been on my own for about 3 years there. So,
You mentioned a graphic person. Who is that?
Her name is Nitya, and her last name is Nashu. I'm sorry, I'm butchering her name. I met her. We had coffee. I've seen some of her work. I watched her, and I will pass that out. Everyone will get from me a list of all the team members.
I have her name.
Yes.
Would that be helpful?
Please.
Her last name is spelled W-A-K-H-L-U. Your guess is as good as mine on how to pronounce that.
And she's done a lot of work in the corporate sector, and has done some work in some nonprofits as well. So, so you'll be getting, from here you'll be getting a email from me kind of giving more details. Second thing to just sort of, okay, so let's run through some overheads. I don't like to do overheads. I like to try to keep things simple. One of the questions that came up when I first met with Kyle and Dante and Sarah was, can you just spend a minute saying why strategic planning? Y'all probably know why, because you were the ones who wrote the RFP to actually engage in this process. But I thought I'd put together one set of 4 bullets. Purpose, focus, measurement, accountability, adaptability, change, direction. That's why strategic planning happens. If you don't have that as commission, there's way too much work to do. You could be running from an event in the disability community to the gay lesbian community to, you could go down the list. You could be reacting to every event that happens outside the window of this building. But the reality is, if we're going to be an effective commission, if we're going to have an effective voice in this community, it's going to require these things: definition, focus, measurement, and direction. And so strategic planning is to hopefully capitalize on the old voices, the new voices, the somewhere in between voices, and sort of create a path forward that can really guide this commission in a very practical way in terms of how you can get to where you want to be tomorrow. So that's why. Any questions about why? I promise I don't lecture all the time. Next page is sort of the model. How are we going to get there? This is my simplest explanation of strategic planning. It starts with there's a compelling need, and you exist to create a different tomorrow related to that compelling need. So one of the things we'll spend a little bit of time on, hopefully we'll get to it tonight, is start thinking about what is that compelling need and what's that different tomorrow look like. I mean, we opened up the meeting today reading the mission. That's a pretty lofty mission. But I want to say, where are the arms and legs on that mission? What do the arms and legs look like? You know, we have some indication of, you know, it looks like this related to human trafficking. It looks like this in terms of relationship to the police bureau. It looks like this in relationship to fostering understanding of intercultural groups. The real question is, do we have that clear enough? Is it arms and legs enough? Do we know where that different tomorrow is, and are we charting a clear path to get there? So once you have this sort of lofty, clear understanding of the need, we don't have to spend a lot of time on that because we all know what the need is. But we want to have some agreement on some of the boxes. Different tomorrow is sort of a vision statement. Sort of, what do you want to do? Now the vision, this different tomorrow, the vision is not that, you know, we're going to eliminate all racism, we're going to have all abilities have equal equity. I mean, that's a great, great vision, but that's not really beyond the horizon. That's like probably even maybe off of the planet for the energy and the resources in this group. So what is the vision that says we can actually impact the institutional racism within the police bureau? That's a vision to get around. We can, you know, create, you know, equity around low-income housing. That's something we can get around. I mean, so the reality is, as we start defining what a vision is, let's make that vision at the horizon, not off the edge of the plane. So that's where we'll spend some time in those two ends. And then a strategic plan is basically filling in the blanks in between. What is it at sort of a 3 to 5 year mission space? What is it that you're going to do in the next 3 to 5 years? What actions are you going to take that is going to move you closer towards that different tomorrow? And then once you kind of have a clear understanding of that mission bucket, what are the 5 or 6 kind of focus areas that are going to drive us? And you already know what they are, and you get to just kind of focus and clarify them and share them so that they're a common understanding. Then you start saying, what are the strategies that we're going to use to get there? What is the capacity that we need to get in order to get there? And that capacity says, y'all are volunteers. And you all are 14. So if you gave 10 hours a week, that's not a whole lot of time. Right? 14 times 10 is what, 148 hours? That's less than a full-time person a year in this room to get the work done. So when you start thinking of capacity, it's saying, how do we leverage these resources with community partners? How do we leverage our resources with additional bodies that may be advisory or ad hoc? The capacity is going to say, you know, what is the structure that we need? Is Google Docs enough? There's some of that you got to talk about too. And then the last thing you need to say is, what are the resources we need? You know, today we got this budget from the city, and that's a good starting place for resources. But some of the other resources may be access to media. It may be access to community advocates who can drive an agenda harder and faster than we can. You know, what are the resources? So the 3 big planning conversations are around strategies, capacities, and resources. So we start with compelling need, different tomorrow, create some real clear vision statements of what we do as a commission that's going to get us closer to that different tomorrow. We then create some really operational stuff, strategies, capacity, resources. And then we have to ask ourselves 3 questions. We have to ask ourselves these questions because not only do we need to know the answer as a commission, but the community needs to know the answer so they can get behind you. And that is the 3 questions of what, how well, it doesn't matter. You know, do you have a report card that you put out every year? So that people know, what have you done? How well you've done it? And what difference you've made. So in the strategic planning process, we'll spend some time thinking about what are the things you want to measure? And how are you going to measure them? In that, there's going to be, in this space here, it's almost a circle because they influence each other. And one of the influences, one of the themes that will be in here is, it really came to me when you were talking about the event. This is exactly what was brought up. Is this part of the strategic planning process? Yes, it is, because strategic plans can't be set in stone. They got to have some dynamism to them. They have to be adaptable. And so as you put together all of this, one of the things you have to do is put in some way to manage opportunities. You know, what do you do as standing committees? What do you do as rapid response? What do you do, you know? So how does something fit into a standing committee bucket? How do things fit into a rapid response bucket? And how do things fit into sort of just proactive kind of movement out there bucket? So that's the process. Questions? Thoughts? Ideas? Amy, go ahead.
I might have missed it. What's your notion of for us to bring in the process of assessing what has worked thus far?
Yes.
Real early on in that.
Yes, really, it's starting. It's starting, and we'll go through that sort of on the next page. Yeah. So this is the map, and to get there, there's three things that you got to do. First thing you got to do is answer 4 questions, which is the next slide. Next question, 4 slides. Where do we come from? Where are we going? How do we get there? Will it matter? This is the visual. The real hard work process is actually starting to actually do an assessment. And so we are going to do a rapid assessment that looks at history, that looks at perceptions, that looks at core strengths, values, and aspirations of this group. And that will kind of serve as a frame. So here's the timeline, and so we can get to that last slide. And see, I powered through my slides. Basically, we're going to get this done in 2 months. We got a 3-week assessment window. And that assessment is going to do basically a definition of what are we, basically it's putting the arms and legs on this, but the way we're going to get there is to first do an assessment. And what we're going to do is several things. We're going to explore the history. And we're going to explore the history in a couple of ways. I got a bunch of documents from the city and from the website, and I'm starting to dig into some of those. And I'm looking at some of the other stuff that other commissions have done in the city that actually are human rights oriented as well. So we're kind of doing some, what is the kind of the context? Where do we come from that way? The second thing we're going to do is interview each one of you. So Marion and I are going to be interviewing each one of you. And so, to that end, I am going to send around a phone interview time, and you get to put down when you might be available for a half-hour phone interview. And if none of these times work for you, you can put in another, but I'm not going to guarantee I'm going to be able to squeeze in another. I tried to put in some early evening stuff. I tried to put in a full day. I tried to put in a couple of half days. So I'm going to start passing this around, and you all can choose one slot that we will do a phone interview. It'll be a half-hour interview, same questions. Everything you say will be kept anonymous, and the answers will kind of be put together as an aggregate. So you all want people to be as free to speak as they want. And if we end up taking longer than a half hour, if you think you're going to take longer than a half hour, take 2 slots as it comes around. So that's an option too, because it's really important, I think, to get everyone's personal opinions. Get that fed into the system. Okay, there's going to be a couple of other things we're going to do. We're going to end up probably interviewing a handful of people outside of this commission. My guess is Dante is going to want to sit down with him and talk to him. If you tell me who I need to speak to, you can come up to me afterwards and tell me, hey, you may want to consider this person or that person. We're not going to do 100 people, but if there are a handful of community leaders who really need to get their perspective on this commission, let me know. The other thing we're planning on doing is on the Human Rights Commission's website, there's a list of partner organizations. Did you know that?
We pointed it out.
Okay.
Go ahead. I think there's such a advisory council or something like that on there too.
What's that? Is there an advisory council?
What? I'm not sure I've seen the advisory council, but there's a whole list of about 50 partner organizations. And it's everyone from it's the usual suspects. You guys could probably create the list off the top of your head. What I was wanting to do was send out a brief 5-question survey to them as well. To say, what are your thoughts on the commission? What do they know well? What would you do different? So that we can then bring together their voices. And when I send that survey out, I'm also going to send that same survey out to you guys. So we can actually get your opinions, their opinions, kind of look at them together.
Maybe contribute to that list of organizations. Maybe if they're not partner, if they're not listed as partner organizations, we might have ideas about other organizations in town that would have a view.
I'm willing to, it's an electronic survey, so we can just add 5 more email addresses if we need to. I was going from the perspective that if they were a partner organization, at some point they talked to you guys. Maybe 4 years ago. But at some point they ended up on a list. Or maybe it was one of these things like the events that somebody else put together. You guys just cut and pasted it up here. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. So let's see, and then the bottom one is assessing frameworks from other commissions, and we're already embarked on that. Miriam is actually starting to work on that. So all of that's going to happen in the next 2.5 weeks. And all of that will be synthesized, and then it will serve as the first hour of a day-long retreat. Now, I hate to even bring up retreat dates. The window and the reality is, if we're going to hit a June deadline for this project, we really don't have many degrees of freedom in terms of when the retreat's going to happen. Now, we actually had nailed down 2 days. It was the 21st and 22nd, which is a Saturday and a Sunday. I believe I'd rather do, because the original thought was, do we do 2 half days, basically tie up your entire weekend. And you're saying, we're going to back away from that and say, no, let's do a single day retreat. Make it slightly longer, 8:30 to 3:30. And we are looking at those 2 dates. So it's a Saturday or a Sunday. And I don't want to ask if we want to take a vote on that. but maybe we should. The reason that weekend is really critical is because when you think of the assessment time that we need, the time to do an assessment, to get through a retreat, to be able to then expand it out, because the plan isn't going to come out of the retreat. The framework for the plan is going to come out of the retreat, and we're going to need some more time to actually put the real bones on some of the stuff that we do at the retreat. And so there will be an opportunity for smaller groups to put some more input on very specific pieces that come out of that retreat. So the 1 or 2 or 3 people that miss the retreat aren't being cut out of the process. The process will continue, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for people to come in afterwards. So there will be hopefully enough shaping before and enough shaping after that good ideas don't get lost if you miss the retreat. However, having said that, I'm really going to try to encourage everyone to do whatever gymnastics they can to make the retreat happen. And so the 2 options are the Saturday and the Sunday. And I'm trying desperately to try to find some space. That's a pretty tight timeline. But we want to get good space so we can have some room to stretch out a little bit, and that we can get catering fairly simple and good parking and fairly central. One of the places we're looking at is Cambridge Center. Okay, it's okay space. It's okay space. It's nice. It's good space. Which is over by Lloyd Center, right off of the Max on MLK. Any real opposition to that?
A question.
Okay, question.
Because I was on business travel. I wasn't able to be at the last meeting, so I may have missed an update. But how are those 2 days selected by the commission? Maybe
They weren't selected by the commission. They were selected by the time frame that the executive. Well, let me rephrase that. Kyle, Dante, Sarah, and I met last week to basically nail down the contract, with the understanding that we want this thing to be done by the June meeting. And to do that, when we did the backing up and going forward, that's the weekend. And it really is, it is a decree. And it's not a democratic process. But I think, I'm not seeing any other options in terms of being able to produce a quality report on time. Hector?
I'm one of the few officers who is not convinced that it needs to be done by June or by July. I'm not convinced either for budgetary reasons or for staffing reasons. And so I'll go along with whatever everyone determines, but I don't feel that pressure. My need is for a good plan to be worked out as best as possible, without eliminating any participation from the commission, without having to acquiesce to a process that may not be exactly beneficial to the working ability of the city. So for me, I've heard the rationale for budget and for staff. I reject both of them.
Okay.
Can I jump in?
Go ahead, Kyle.
At the last commission meeting, the commissioners who were here discussed that we wanted to get this done by the end of the fiscal year, and nobody had any objections at that meeting. And I understand you were here, but that was the discussion, and that's what we came to, and the commissioners that were here decided that that's what we wanted to do based on the budget, specifically the budget. At the executive committee meeting, which you were at, the members of the executive committee charged me with the task of getting that specific thing done by July 1st. And nobody at the executive committee meeting had a problem with it at that time.
And I was there.
And you were there. And so Sarah immediately scheduled a meeting with Mark and Dante and myself so that I could do what the executive committee charged me with doing, which was setting a date that would get this done by July 1st. That's how this happened. And
so I honor that process. I honor your work. My concern is not with what you have been tasked to do. My concern is the pressure of the budget and the pressure of staffing that is based on a mission, strategic action plan. My understanding of staff is staff will do whatever this commission determines staff will do, whether it be this plan or another plan that we come up with. It doesn't change the needs of the staff. At least as I understand the staff role, and I've been one for 50 years. The budget, that one I don't understand either, because it's pretty clear what our budget is. I don't think that's going to change much, regardless of what we do with that budget. So that's my response. I'm going to respond to the work you do.
And here's what I would say as a hiring facilitator. I was hired with a contract date that ends at the end of this fiscal year. And I was hired with the parameters of the budget that is right now. So I'm responding to meeting with the chair, staff, and what they were asking for me. So if this becomes the conversation that the commission needs to have, then what I'll need to do is kind of step out of a presenter role and allow the commission to vet it, decide what to do, and defer back to the city for whatever process that would need to be done. So I guess what I'm saying is I have no control over the parameters that have been given to me.
And I don't have a need to do what you do.
Okay.
I just said what I said.
Okay.
And didn't go with that.
And I do, I know that I travel a lot for work, and I expect you to know, I don't expect accommodations to be made aside from having a phone hook up as possible and I'm able to participate at HUD and everything. But I book my travel out 6 months in advance, and a lot of it's out of my control, the travel that is booked.
ourselves in a very difficult place by the timing of it. And I think the best we could do, even with the democratic process, would be find something that works for the most people. And we could go through that process now, because I think what people are feeling is that we don't have any options, and there certainly are. But we have to understand the options inside the parameters. And I think what we might be hearing is that, is it true that April 21st, Saturday, is the only option within those parameters? So for instance, is Friday evening part of the options that fit in the parameters? There are a lot of days that fit in those parameters that we haven't talked about, and that might be what folks are feeling. If everybody understood the parameters and then understood the options, then we might feel better about what is happening. That's just my guess. Because there's sort of, as we said, we can't do anything about the parameters themselves, the other pieces that have come up. And, you know, whether or not all those options were considered at that meeting, they may have been, but this might be the place to do that briefly.
Yeah, if we are talking about working with the July 1st deadline, picking up from what you just shared, there's two pieces of information that would help me understand that specific process of looking at our options. One is a little bit of information that Sarah was kind enough to share about your process, because it seemed like there were 2 other weekends that you guys were perhaps not available for some clarification.
I wasn't here the following weekend, but
Yeah.
that didn't fit into
The plan anyway. So yeah, if we could clarify that, what,
And the previous weekend is only a week away from
a
now.
week away, okay.
Yes, and I could.
Okay. And then,
That's fine.
and the second thing is, I was hearing ideas about perhaps this meeting in 2 days. And so I'm wondering if part of our exploring the possibilities is could we open it up to a 2 full days? And that might be part of what you're budgeting, I don't know, but I'm aware that it could be that some people can work with a Saturday, but not the Sunday or vice versa, and that might negate some of the work. It might be missing info.
I will speak as facilitator. You will likely, on the window that you're looking at, be unable to find a weekend where you're going to have 100% participation. So there is, the trade-off will be, do we accommodate some at the expense of others? Whatever time frame we do, that's what would happen. The opportunity to do it in 2 half-days is a possibility. The question is, though, could we find 2 half-days? The inefficiency of 2 half-days, particularly if there are people coming in one day and not the other, is that you do duplicate some effort between them by splitting it into 2 days. So you do lose a little bit of efficiency there. However, that's not necessarily a deal breaker. But the question is, when people want to give up 2 4.5-hour, 5-hour blocks of time, and that would mean encroaching into a week. So could we get more of a critical mass on a Tuesday or a Friday to give up 5 hours, even if we went from 3 to 9? That's the kind of conversation to have. Whether or not you want to get into that conversation, that's really, a group process that again, I'm going to come back and say outside of my control. As I understood it when we met, it was really, can we create a structure that works?
I just have a question. Most of the people here can make the 21st, right?
Who can't make it? Well, who can't make it? By show of hands.
It's a possibility I cannot.
So it's 3, 4?
Is that for a Saturday?
We're also missing at least 3 people.
Is that the Saturday or the Sunday?
21st is the Saturday.
What about the Sunday? Anybody? Could any of those people make it on this? Yeah, if you're going on Sunday. And Ashley, you're out of town, right?
I will need to double check. I'm asked that too, so I'm going to be back Saturday.
Christine, who's not here, said that weekend was okay for her. I believe Emily said it was okay for her. I'm not sure about Azulio.
to the question of 2 half-days or a whole day. And it would seem to me not only would we have duplicity in terms of maybe people who were not able to come to both days, but we would also have a certain amount of duplication of bringing people up to speed. And I think it would be more efficient to have one day, and those who are here to be a part of it, and maybe, you know, since you're going to have a person that's a graphic organizer, going to be doing all of that stuff, that maybe those folks who aren't able to make it, that graphic organization can be sent immediately to those who aren't able to make it, and maybe they can add some input.
Go ahead.
You can respond.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering if we don't meet all together, will that, because I see this meeting as something that will also build a lot of team building, and maybe so that we will join together as a commission, which is something that we want to also present ourselves to other commissions and other people.
Right.
As we know each other as well, and we're not only be here, we're going to be.
Yeah. The answer to that is, again, unless you're scheduling a process over the next 6 months, getting far enough out that everyone's calendar is clear so that everyone is there is going to be more difficult. I don't want to overstate the retreat day. The retreat day will be a significant portion of the group planning process. But again, there will be process before and engagement before. And ideally, if you're not going to be there, maybe we're doing an hour conversation or 2 half-hour conversations before the retreat. And it will be immediate processing after, which, you know, as facilitator, you know, I and Miriam would be more than happy to then, following the retreat, for those who are unable to attend, sit down and do a brief walkthrough and spend an hour with the individuals who weren't able to be there to kind of review the process, review the findings, so that there is a, not just reading the notes that come out of it, but actually some dialogue and process and opportunity to provide further input. So the retreat is a point in the planning process. And I did try to underscore that before and after, what we're trying to do is design a process that is participatory and empowering to the entire commission. And so that's kind of the 2 lenses that I would have to it.
Is it also a possibility that when we come back in May, that we spend a significant portion of our May meeting as kind of like a mini retreat, or an opportunity for us to, for the folks that can be there, to spend time, you know, not rehashing what we did in the retreat, but at least have another point of input?
It will be another, that's exactly what will happen. So the retreat will happen on the weekend of the 21st. Then what will happen is, during that following week, we will have a mocked up enough that when we come to the next human rights meeting on the 2nd of May, that we dedicate time to review and to process and to give further input on that framework and the emerging strategies that come out of that. So yes, the meeting on the 2nd is clearly another point of group process to continue to feed and build the plan.
And so that's a time that everybody should already have had on their calendar, whether or not we have conflicts, but it's also a time we could try to extend our time or dedicate most of it to continue that process that comes out of the retreat.
Yes.
You know, so that folks who weren't able to participate in the retreat at that time might get a sense for not only what happened there, but how they might have input into the things that went on there.
Mm-hmm.
That's helpful.
So the staging could be retreat, then it'd be one-on-one meetings with the facilitators between the retreat and a meeting on the 2nd, and then the 2nd will be the continuation of the process and likely getting near the closure of that process so that we can start doing some significant writing the following week, draft, review, further input, revision, and June presentation. So,
Can I ask a question, because I was just, you said something about talking, having a phone conference for half an hour or an hour.
Right.
And these are half-hour slots.
Right.
So,
take 2 slots if you need, if you'd like an hour.
Take 2 are small dogs.
oh, like,
You don't have to like them, just have to
Bring
listen.
across, bring your name across 2 hours, 2 half hours.
half an hour is fine. I just was trying to make sure that I understood whether you wanted a half an hour or an hour.
Half hour to an hour, depending on what you feel like we're gonna probably have 4 to 5 questions that will be broad, even for everybody. If you feel like you've got a deep history or you've got a lot of new energy and might need an hour, because you think that, 4 questions, 5 questions in a half hour might be too brief, feel free to take an hour. And so, we can think through that. So again, I've laid it out on this last page here, sort of the assessing, framing, and writing task. And again, there is a little bit of shorthand. So process moving forward, we're going to be assessing, which includes personal phone calls, a handful of select other key informant one-on-ones, the broader online survey of stakeholders, the other tasks that are in the assessment, coming together, providing that in the part of the day retreat. Basically moving through with a focus of the retreat on strategies on sort of the action items. How are we going to get to where we want to go? Getting that process through, we will then have a strategic plan framework which gets written up the following week. During that week, those who can't make the retreat, we will do one-on-ones with, and then we will have a presentation at the May 2nd meeting where it's continuing the process, continuing to provide input, and from there we will begin actual writing, and in the writing we will also have opportunities to continue to provide feedback as we start building out the final product. With again, the June meeting being the estimated time for launch. Tightly scripted, and I'm sorry if it sounded like I was like too tightly scripting, but it is I think a task that is doable. The team I put together feels like it's doable, and it will just be consultative. Folks, go through the process.
Well, I'm feeling like I'm not sure we've come to a decision about what the process by which we decide on a date and what that date is going to be. And my off date on that. I just would like to see that.
Okay. So let me ask. Am I hearing that the question is whether there's other weekends or other structures like 2 half days that people want to further vet, or are we trying? Or is the question more narrow? Is it Saturday or is it Sunday? What do you ask?
I think both.
Or is it that we have completed the process of deciding which way we want to proceed? And I don't think we have the final answer. I guess for me it is. I think that everybody here now has more information about how the date was arrived at and what the parameters are. And I think the decision we have to make at this point, to answer the question, is are folks comfortable with that, or do we want to revisit either the process or the parameters? But I can provide more information about the parameters if you'd like. And we know that the process to set dates would be a little arduous and likely wouldn't fit the parameters that we have in front of us. So if there are comments on that,
Do you have any? Are you done?
I'm done. I guess I would say that I understand the parameters. I'm comfortable with them, and I do think it would be detrimental to revisit the process.
Okay.
As you've said several times, it is not possible to get a date that we all can attend. Even if you tried for 6 months out, there would be somebody that probably has something scheduled. And I think it's unfortunate that not everybody is able to do it. But at the same time, we do need to move forward, and we do have a deadline of June 1st that we need to have the product. So the suggestion that I think I would make is that for those people who are not able to make it, we need to decide on a day, whether it's the 21st or the 22nd. That would be the first thing. And then the second thing is those people who are not able to make it, as soon as you could get the information to those people who aren't able to make it, like I said, with the graphic organizing and the notes and all of that, then you would have a chance, those who aren't able to make it would have a chance to read that and then maybe have another phone conference with you.
And I'm suggesting we would actually do a one-on-one with that individual.
Yeah.
That we would give them the materials and actually set up a meeting to sit down, either by
Okay.
phone or in person, that we would make sure that we gave the opportunity for immediate processing and feedback.
And it might need to be more than an hour.
Yes.
It might need to be 2 hours
Yes.
or 3 hours or whatever the person has available to them.
Yes.
But I think we are not going to be happy, all of us, 100% with this process.
Right.
And so now you have to pick your lesser of the evils. And I think we need to do that as quickly as possible so we can move on.
Oh, I was actually more so with my retreats to that or anything. I was just saying that I was hoping that we could all, work harmoniously on this too, because if we can, how do we expect to have our community work harmoniously?
Well, I think in the past, you're new to the commission, and in the past we have had weekend commissions, retreats where we've done, gotten together and done those sorts of things. And I think the thing that makes us different, it's not that the commissioners are not willing to do the team building. I think it's the short timeline that's the issue. And it's unfortunate that relationship has to be sacrificed for our timeline. And I just think that's the bottom line, is that, hey, I'll welcome you and fix you some spaghetti and come over to my house, but if that's what you want. But, I'm just saying, we don't have that time. And I think the fact that you, and mostly it seems like the new people are the ones who are not able to come, you were selected for this because we did like you.
Okay, Ashley, then over there.
I don't want to revisit the process and open it all up. It was helpful to hear the parameters. I think what struck me initially when I spoke was just that this is such an important thing, strategic planning. It's not as common to vote on any other issue, and it really is going to bring us together and guide our future work, and I have a lot of value for that. And I just, in the future, if I'm able to participate in this kind of important planning process, would like there to be solicitation via email and in person for those who aren't physically present during a meeting, picking dates for this kind of thing. I think that's more process-oriented feedback, but I don't actually want to open it all up because it sounds like the majority of people can make it, and I know that we'll never be able to accommodate it.
And the commission has been really good about doing that previously.
Previously, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to hear about the sort of sandwiching where we get to talk to you before and afterwards. So there's some opportunity for that process.
Yes, because it's participatory throughout the entire 2 months.
What time is being proposed for Saturday and potentially for Sunday?
We were looking at the window of 8:30 to 3:30.
You mean the whole time for 8:30 to 3:30?
8:30 to 3:30,
Okay,
full day
Saturday.
retreat.
For Saturday.
For either of Saturday or Sunday, depending on the day that is chosen. I mean, we could make it 9 to 4, or we could make it 8 to 3, but, you really to get a productive block of time with a lunch in there, you're really having to block out about 7 hours to get 6 really productive hours in. So, Amy.
I would just say, yeah, this is pretty much what I was asking for, and it sounds like we're building an alternative for those people who are not able to make it on the 21st. And you keep listing it really well. And I would like to suggest an add to that, and that somehow those who cannot make it team up with somebody else who can be their liaison, their delegate, to weave in their ideas to the process.
my process was always have those pieces in mind, that there would be accommodation of those who aren't, we have to have a particular date straight. So, it is that process. So it sounds like we are moving to a place where we're saying, is it Saturday or Sunday? Oh,
So my question or comment does deal with the process, but like Ashley, I'm not asking you to reopen it, but I would like perhaps at the next regular meeting that we have a discussion about how much our work is tied to the fiscal year. Because if that's the purpose behind why we have to do it under this timeline, we need to know that at the beginning of every fiscal year, what needs to be completed by the end.
I can answer that. The reason why we have to get this done by this fiscal year is because we rolled over the $20,000 from last fiscal year into this fiscal year with the purpose of using it for the strategic plan. So that's why we have to get it done by June 30th.
Because we couldn't roll it over yet again.
Correct. So we would lose it. So that's why you have to get it done. The RFP was ready to go in August. It didn't get sent out till late October. Like, you've been waiting forever to hear from us. So we've been dragging our feet on this.
I'm familiar with that part of it.
Yeah. So that's why all of a sudden we're faced with a short timeline. In the RFP, we had 12 weeks to do it.
yeah.
Now the reality is that we don't. If we were able to get the RFP out when we initially had planned, and if we reviewed it quicker, then we wouldn't be faced with it. And so that's why we are where we are.
And wasn't that RFP affected by the new Office of Equity?
I'm sorry, what?
Wasn't that RFP strongly affected by the new
Not at all.
Office of Equity?
I had it ready to go in August. And
No,
it was
that's not what I mean. I mean, I think depending on how the Office of Equity went, it might have affected everybody else is shaking their head no. Yes, you're going left, no. Okay.
Okay. So,
Saturday or Sunday.
have we vetted the process well enough? In terms of all the external issues, we're still faced with Saturday or Sunday. I have confirmation from Ambridge on Sunday, I believe. I'm waiting for confirmation on the other day. So, but we'll find space. The decision shouldn't be based on what space is available at this moment in time.
I go Saturday.
So,
That's what we're waiting for, is on
I think Saturday, too. I'm available. I think Saturday might be easier for more folks.
Let's do a quick hand, show of
Your
hands.
Saturday is the 21st.
All right, raise your hand if you would prefer Saturday the 21st over Sunday the 22nd.
Okay. 3, 6, 7. Sunday. 2, 3.
And I can do Sunday also.
Maybe the question is, who can do Saturday? Please raise your hand.
What,
Who can
how
do
about if we do
Sunday?
this?
Raise your
How
hand.
many cannot do Saturday? Cannot. Absolutely no flexibility.
Well, if you want the flexibility, you cannot participate in either day.
Yeah, if you can't participate in either day, don't raise your hand. But if it's Saturday or Sunday, and you can participate one but not the other, how many cannot participate on Saturday?
Extreme hardship.
Okay, 2. How many cannot participate on Sunday? 2.
Oh my God, this is going to be continued on the 21st, and just take it as a lesson learned and kind of like move on.
I'm open to. Go ahead.
Okay.
So what do you say?
I vote for Saturday because I don't feel like I need to be there. And I definitely wouldn't want to hold it up. I feel like I could learn and give input and catch up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and
Saturday seems to work with everyone else except for us.
well, and I'm prepared to do some more major gymnastics to be able to make it here on Saturday. So if that helps us move away from all this, I'm happy to.
And if it helps the process at all, I'm doing gymnastics to be there on Saturday. What's that? It doesn't matter? Okay. Okay. Well, am
am I hearing the decision then is Saturday?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Saturday.
originally we had Friday written down too, so we're not doing anything Friday.
I've not heard of anything on Friday.
Okay.
I know my conversation. I just don't want to make a mistake writing down the day. Saturday, the 21st.
And are we doing 8:30 to 3:30?
8:30 to 3:30 seems to make sense.
Does anybody that is going to be there have a problem with 8:30 to 3:30?
Okay. 8:30 to 3:30. So we have about 10 minutes remaining for the agenda. Now, I think process is really important, and I really think that as we move forward, you don't know me. You know, some of you know each other, some of you don't know each other. It will be a process of building trust, and I think that strategic planning inherently is people figuring out how to make it work. There is a developing the learning among yourselves is going to be definitely part of this process. And I think that the great opportunity that this group has is that there is a strong mix of folks who've been here from the beginning, maybe even before, people who've been here brand new. And so there's an opportunity for lots of learning and lots of different perspectives in this process. And so coming into it, the process of relationship building will be part of it. We won't be doing necessarily icebreakers that are, falling backwards into each other's arms to build trust. In fact, I can guarantee you won't. But what we will be doing is hopefully having honest dialogue. And as we move into this process, what I want to assure people is as we're talking one-on-one, or as we talk as a group, that the ground rules of respect and of confidentiality will be there. I want to encourage openness and frankness with each other, with me, with Miriam, as we're kind of moving through this journey. Because that's really, I think, pretty important. And if you say, I want to share some things, but I don't want them to show up anywhere, I'm willing to listen and suspend judgment. Because I think what I'm brought in to do is to bring impartiality. I have absolute partiality to the topic of human rights. And the themes of social justice have underlined my career just as it's brought a lot of you folks to the table as well. So I come with some really strong biases towards the content, but to the process I think I can come as impartial. That I can listen, that I can help you guys make the strategy decisions that will be most meaningful to the Commission and take the Commission forward the furthest. Maybe another little teeny bit of my background is I actually was trained in mediation, so that's sort of in my back pocket. I was actually on the board of Resolutions Northwest for 5 years, and board chair for 2.5. So, I've done a lot of work in that area as well. So, I look forward to the process. I think that we don't have time to delve into any content tonight, but I think we can breathe, we can start. You can expect phone calls, you can expect emails, and I'm assuming I have the correct email roster. Sarah gave me one, so you'll be getting a group email from me, so you'll know who I am. On the front of this handout that I gave you is my cell phone number and my email address. Either one can get to me. Feel free to use them. On my website you can find another phone number, but that's basically a voicemail number, so get a hold of myself. I'm available on this.
we're looking at a 3 to 5 or 5-year plan? Is it one or the other, or undefined?
At this moment, it's undefined.
Okay.
I mean, as you get together, as you guys put your head together, you guys get to figure out, is the context changed so rapidly that 5 years is prohibitive to start thinking out? Is there a 3-year agenda that would get you further if you focus just on 3 years? You know, those are some of the questions we'll be asking. But it will be that a planning window that you guys get to help define. Other questions? Comments? Thoughts? I'm finished. I know that you guys have it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mark. That's exciting. We're getting started. Announcements we can do. One is that this Friday, I believe, Sarah, for sure, at 4:30?
4:30 to 6.
4:30 to 6, there is a... What is it?
There's just like a meet and greet with Dante.
Meet and greet with Dante.
Super casual. Come say hi.
Casuals meet and greet. It's going to be in the City Hall atrium. So everyone is invited. I'm not sure that I will be able to make it, so if there are other commissioners who can, it would be fantastic. You can wear your buttons and your badges and come say hi to Dante and all the good folks at the office, and there will be free food.
Your budget? That's what my question is.
Do you have any name badges?
Yeah.
Well, they have one? You have one?
Some of the old ones. You haven't gotten yours?
I thought we had a big envelope of them.
I haven't
We do have an envelope, but the
I
question is,
know.
where is it?
Yeah, what meeting everybody had badges?
That's the yellow one.
No, but I thought at one point we had all these too.
I bet you
Wow.
got one.
So who has the
I
envelope?
just don't ever have one.
Seriously, I've never seen one.
There was one. My question is, who has it?
The envelope was empty. It was just yellow buttons in for Emily.
No, I'm sure we ordered, I don't think we ordered them for this,
For the new
commissioners, but the last round of new commissioners we had,
But
and
actually,
everybody
yeah.
had an extra one.
Yeah.
But it was on the shelf at the old
At the
office.
office.
Actually,
I did not know that was, but it's okay.
Well, I mean, I know.
Actually, I'd start taking this stuff personal if I was you.
So it
You can't come to the
exists
meeting,
somewhere,
no name tag.
and that doesn't mean that everybody has an extra name tag. So I think Ashley does have a name tag somewhere among the supplies of the office.
I'll dig through the supplies and find them.
It is in the middle envelope. I saw a picture of myself.
Yep. 4:30 to 6. It's just come and go whenever you feel
So I
like it.
think my assumption is a lot of the folks who work with the creation committee for creating the office will be there, and lots of other folks in the community. That's the only other announcement. Anybody else? Emily over here, she definitely has something. You know that you're invited to the, or maybe it's because Kathy has it. Her, say
I
it.
just want to kind of remind again about this. This is, you know, it was mentioned like it feels kind of like you'll be at a place, but that's, at least from my perspective, this is kind of like a beginning, and sometimes it's a start, and then align it and plan it, and so it's kind of process. But really send me whatever events and things you would like to support from the commission, and then so we can start putting it together in a nice package for the future.
Thank you. All right, with that, we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you, everyone.